Hey guys, this is Mark. In this video, I will talk about the JSON data type available in Backendless database. The database itself is a relational system that provides support for well-structured data. With the Backendless database, you can describe pretty much any entity by identifying its properties and declaring those properties as columns in the corresponding data tables. As a result, you can pretty much express any data structure that would have a fixed structure where for every property there is a column. However, there are some cases when any given entity may need to have additional description that does not follow a specific structure. And that's where JSON comes into play and becomes very, very effective way to capture that data. There are some additional use cases and I'll be describing them today. So JSON provides a variety of different structures. You can have objects defined in JSON. You can have arrays of data in JSON. You could have basic strings and integers and booleans in JSON. And then, of course, arrays and objects may contain data of the primitive JSON type. So you could have an array of objects or an array of integers, an array of strings. So with that flexibility, you can start describing some additional data that does not have predefined format in the form of JSON documents. And those JSON documents can be placed in data columns of the JSON type, column type that is. So the question is, when does it make sense to start using JSON in Backendless? There are some examples that would demonstrate it better than others. For instance, let's say you have a product configurator. So let's say your application provides an ability to configure a product, let's say before a customer orders it. And those product configurations can be very different varying from one order to another. And as a result, there may not be a fixed structure for product customizations. It could be, I wouldn't say free form, but it would be more or less inconsistent from one order to another. And this would be a good example where you could have an order table that defines all the attributes and properties of the order captured in individual columns. But for any customizations that the customer has requested, they could go into the JSON document, and that JSON document would be attached to a record in the database for the specific order. Another example is when a single record in the Backendless database may need to have a collection of integers, and it may be excessive to create individual columns for whatever those integers are, and a simpler option would be to have a JSON array of those integers sitting as a value in a JSON column. In one of the videos I have reviewed the file reference type, which is very convenient. However, the file reference type gives you an ability to associate one file with one record in the database. And the question is, what if you have multiple files? Then a JSON array of strings where each individual string is a URL of the file would be very handy because, again, for a single record, you could have multiple URLs sitting as one JSON value, which would be an array of strings. So those are some of the examples that demonstrate where the power of using JSON in a database like Backendless comes into play and becomes very, very effective. Whenever you store JSON in the Backendless database, the API we provide gives you an ability to do data retrieval based on the data that is in JSON. That means that you can retrieve database records and in the query reference specific fields in the JSON values stored in those records. Same thing goes for updates. You can actually modify portions of the JSON documents stored in the individual records using the API. All of that is described in the video that is referenced on your screen. So you're welcome to watch that and see what that query, what those queries look like. And we also provide documentation with detailed description for the format and the functions supported. But for now, let me demonstrate what the process of creating a JSON column looks like, and then we'll work with a few JSON documents just to demonstrate the basic functions available in Backendless Console. For this, I will switch to a different table. We discussed providing product customizations in orders. So for this, I already have a table called order, fairly basic table. Let's take a look at the schema. Here we have a couple of columns such as name, delivery date, and so on. So let's create a new column and call it customizations. And the type of that column is going to be JSON. The constraints that we have, the only constraint that is available is not null. And you already know what it is from an earlier video that I have recorded. Let's create that column, and now if we go back to Data Browser, you see that there is a customization column. The data type is JSON. So if you are going to enter data in Backendless Console, you can just start typing it right here, or if you click on this icon, it opens up the multi-line JSON editor. And in here, let's say if it is going to be a JSON object, by the way, there is a built-in validation to make sure that it is a proper JSON. And in here, we can just start typing up a JSON object. So for instance, if it is a customization for a product, we can say color has to be red. For instance, if there is size, let's say XL, whatever, quantity would be separate, but let's say material, if there is such a thing for a product customization. I'm not even sure what product I'm customizing, but I'm just gonna making things up as I go. So let's say material is going to be plastic. Okay, so that's good enough. So click Save. Now we have this JSON in here as a part of this record. If we open it up, it is already nicely formatted. And let's take a look at what this value looks like when we retrieve it using the API. So for this, we will be retrieving a record that has order A in the name. Let's go to REST console and type in name equals order A. Click Get. And here we are. This is the response. Notice that the customization property contains this JSON object, and it looks like just part of the response because it is. So it's just a JSON property that contains a JSON document. If some other record references a JSON that is a completely different format, and it can be, this will be just fine. It will work the same way. Whether it's a good idea or not, it will really depend on what your application is doing, but nothing will stop you from, let's say, declaring that in here, or of course it is not a product customization, but let's say we have an array of integers, okay? And in this case, and it's going to be order B, so let's request order B. See, the customizations now is an array of integers. And with JSON, it doesn't have to be an array of strictly integers or strings. You can mix any kind of JSON value in a JSON array, and that will be a perfectly valid JSON. The point here is that you can embed JSON values as just a part of a regular database record. Same thing goes for creating data. So here, if we were to create an order, and let's create one. So it's going to be name. We have order D, for instance. And in the customizations field will contain a, let's say it is going to be an array of some numbers and some strings. Now this is as far as it can be removed from customizations, but we'll just are doing it as a test. So click Put. And now we have this customizations containing this array, and it will be displayed as such right here in the database. So that's the JSON in our database. Of course, the true power of it comes from the functions that are supported in order to perform more complex queries and updates of the JSON documents. But even without those, if you just need to store JSON in the database, now you know that Backendless supports it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it useful, and as always, happy coding.